Welcome back to Studio F, where on Fast Times Willy B, we'll be reviewing The Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds.
Wrestle.
Welcome back to Fast Times Willy B. I'm Willy B. I got Uncle Robb on the show today. How we doing?
I'm doing well. How about you, Will?
I'm doing well as well. You know, you can't beat a Saturday matinee showing of Planet of the Apes, can you?
And a big bucket of popcorn.
That was honestly the, we'll get into the movie, but that might have been the highlight of the day, the big bucket of the popcorn.
It was.
But no, today we'll be talking about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, the fourth installment to our current storyline, but like the 10th installment to the entire universe of Planet of the Apes. We get a new director. We had Matt Reeves for the last two. We get Wes Ball here. He had a lot. He directed some of the Maze Runner movies. So he takes on the reins here in the director's chair for this next installment of Planet of the Apes cast. There were some names that are recognizable. There were some newcomers, people I didn't recognize. Owen Teague was one of those. He played our main character, or voiced and mocapped our main character, Noah. Kevin Durand played Proximus. He's an actor that I'm really learning to like. He was in Abigail a few months ago, or last month, I should say. We have Freya Allen playing May, Peter Macon playing Raka, and then William H. Macy makes an appearance.
Which was a surprise.
And he's Trevathan, who's one of the humans that allies with the evil clan of apes. But like I said, a good mix of some younger, up-and-coming people, and seeing William H. Macy was honestly nice. I wasn't expecting that.
No.
Frank. I didn't look up the cast list before this movie, and he wasn't in the trailer. When he popped up, I was like, oh, look at this.
And I knew immediately.
Yeah.
I wasn't even sure if it was him, but I thought, well, that's William H. Macy.
Yeah.
Or it should be, and then it turned out to be him. So.
Rocking the long hair and the ponytail. But So we'll hop into the good, and there is a lot of good in this movie. You know, we both kind of left the theater with a similar taste in our mouth. But if there's one thing it did well, it was visually stunning.
Yes.
The visuals were great. Were there a few minor flaws here with the CGI?
A little bit.
For sure. But the cinematography and the VFX, for the most part, were really well done.
Yes.
I don't know if this will take home any awards in the cinematography front, but it might be up for them. This might be one of the more visually stunning movies of the year.
And I really can't fairly say that because I don't see the movies that you see.
Yeah.
But I do agree overall that visually it was a pretty decent movie.
Captivating, good use of colors. The lighting was good. Never really had any struggle with the lighting. I know that sometimes that's the deal breaker, especially in science fiction, when you start getting in places that can be dark. They did it all pretty well on the visual front. Another thing I liked, the voice acting was done really well.
Yeah.
I liked just about everything. I thought Owen Teague was great as Noah. My favorite was probably Kevin Durand as Proximus Caesar. He had that menacing, deep voice. You could tell he was a big brute of a guy. He wasn't a gorilla or anything. He was just a normal, ape, like the rest of, the ones we usually get throughout these films. But I thought Kevin Durand did a really good job along with the rest of the cast.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. And then,
I liked May. This was a scene you liked too. The build-up of May and how we discover that
she can talk.
There's some intelligent life out there.
Yeah, that was. I mean, it was quick, but it was a pretty good scene the way they did it. Mm-hmm. And I'll say that you wanted to know. She wasn't a bad character.
No.
I didn't think that they did a bad job there. Mm-hmm. But the movie just kind of went along.
It did, yeah. There were some little things here and there that definitely were nice to see because they were pulled from the original film.
Yeah.
We get the doll saying "Mama." We get some. You pointed out a few to me. The netting the humans in the river, or not in the river, but outside of it. And then what was the other one we were talking about?
I can't even remember now.
Oh, the scarecrows.
Yes.
The scarecrows.
Yeah.
So it was cool. And they've done that throughout all of these movies.
Yes, including, I believe, the Mark Wahlberg one, I think they
Yeah.
had.
Because I know Rise of, the two that really stuck out was Get Your Dirty Damn Ape Hand Off Me, and then It's a Madhouse. Those were both in the Rise of. But every movie's had something.
Right.
But yeah, I liked seeing the doll again. They also added an inclusion of some of these children books where you see apes behind bars at zoos, and it was just another way to tell, like, this world was ran by humans, because this is 300 years in the future.
Which we didn't even know.
Yeah. We get a little clip that says...
Generations.
Yeah.
So we had no idea until you looked it up.
Yeah.
That it was, in fact, 300 years later. I actually think I found that a little disappointing.
The children's book?
When I found out that it was 300 years into the future.
Okay. Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about that. You're 300 years into the future with what has become the most intelligent species on the planet, yet they're living primitively.
Yeah.
And I was a little... I guess I shouldn't say shocked, but I guess disappointed.
Yeah. What were some of the other good things that stuck out to you, though? I know we kind of talked a little bit on the car ride back home.
Well, I mean...
there were some scenes that shined.
The main character you liked Noah.
Yeah.
You did like Noah. And May or whatever her name was. You didn't dislike the characters.
Yeah.
Okay, so the characters were likable, but as we talked about, there was very little character building.
Yeah.
The movie just kind of went along.
Yeah.
And it just never grabbed me.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't awful, but it never grabbed me.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. If you don't have anything else to add to the good, we can honestly hop to the meh. 'Cause I feel like that's where a lot of the things fall for both of us. It's just that meh category. Like you said.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad, but it didn't grab you.
No. We talked about, usually a really good movie, when you sit down, you got about a half hour where you're learning the movie and you're trying to settle in.
Yeah.
And then what happens is the next thing you know, the movie's over.
Yeah.
And you had bought into it and you just went, and now you're there.
Yeah.
And it's over and you're going, well, that was a good movie.
Yeah.
And you just didn't have that here.
Yeah.
There was no edginess to it. It never grabbed you and pulled you in.
Yeah.
It was never awful, but
Yeah.
it was never fantastic.
Yeah.
And then when I happened to look at my clock and realize, oh, we're at the end, still, it just didn't.
Yeah.
It never really said, what a great ending.
Yeah.
Or what a wow factor.
Yeah. That's definitely the biggest meh for me, too, is it was almost boring at times.
Yeah.
The pacing, and I don't even know if it was a pacing thing, because like you said, you checked your phone and the movie was almost over. So, like, it's not even like you were sitting there and it was dragging on. It just wasn't always captivating.
Right.
It was... The example I gave is, they just announced that this is going to be a 9-movie saga. And after hearing that, this almost felt like a Bridge episode.
Well, my thought was, I wonder how many of that 9 movies I never see.
Yeah.
Because I start thinking, are they going to do to Planet of the Apes what they've done to all these other great movies, series that make way too many of them, that aren't very good, and you get to a point where you go, I have no desire to even watch any more of them.
Yeah.
You get
that occasional wild card, like come the 8th installment, that's like, oh, well, that one was good. Get you excited for 9, then 9 falls flat again.
And if I hear that, look, I'll probably continue to watch them.
Yeah.
Because I was always a fan.
Yeah.
And I've enjoyed them all. But as I said to you when we left, there's nothing about these movies, and maybe it is because you've already experienced it, and that probably has a lot to do with it. But there's nothing about these movies edgy compared to the original one.
Oh, for sure.
When that original one happened with Charlton Heston, it was so edgy and so eerie, and it made you think. And at least when I watched the Mark Wahlberg Planet of the Apes movie, there were some things that made you think.
Yeah.
But as I watch these, they're not bad movies, but they've lost that edginess. There's just nothing there that you and we talked about how you're watching the movie and you're almost able to go, well, I think this is going to happen.
Yeah.
And this is probably going to happen.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be able to do that. Maybe here and there, but not like I felt I was able to do throughout this movie.
Yeah, there was a high level of predictability for sure in this movie. The one you mentioned was the birds coming full circle. You see them flying in the background as he's getting his ass kicked, and you're like, all right, when are you going to start the bird call? There's definitely that. For me, when it comes to looking at all of the movies, the original still holds the number one spot for me, and it will probably never be taken over. Let's be real. I'm not expecting it to ever get a movie better.
I agree with
one.
that. Right.
But I do enjoy this trilogy that we've gotten so far, leading into this fourth movie. I really liked Rise. I loved Dawn, and I enjoyed War. Not as much as most people did, I think, but I enjoyed it. This one definitely was the worst of those four, though. Not saying, again, that it's bad, because there were elements to like. It's visually stunning. The voice acting was good. Likeable characters. It just didn't do the things that the first three did when you're comparing those four. And that's how I felt leaving the theater.
I agree with that. And I had mentioned I would really be interested to know what percentage of this movie was special effects and what percentage of this movie were they really on a horse in the woods riding.
Yeah.
Because being older and a little more old school, I tend to appreciate an actual set.
The practical effects.
And real things versus, let's just put them in front of a blue screen.
Yeah.
For
sure.
And one movie that for some reason, and I haven't mentioned this to you, but one movie that I kind of think of as an example, and a lot of people didn't like this movie, I actually did. But this movie, for what it was, they built great sets.
Yeah.
It was What Waterworld.
Okay.
I thought it went right out of my head for a second. I like when they build a set.
Yeah.
When you're seeing that it's real action, it's real people doing real things.
Yeah.
And not just completely relying on CGI.
For sure.
Because when they rely on CGI, there's a fake factor
like
to it.
You pointed out a couple that, like, for the most part, the CGI was done well.
Yes.
But when you start to use it so much, that's when you start to see things slip through that you're like, okay, you can tell.
Well, and I think they're using today. This is my opinion. Hollywood uses CGI today out of laziness.
Yeah.
And I think that they want to be more visually appealing because their stories aren't as good.
Yeah.
And I think that if you really want to make a great Planet of the Apes movie, I think you need to step back a little bit to the rawness that was frightening, because nothing about this movie was frightening.
No, I think the biggest difference between the original and these movies is the original really makes the apes a villain. Obviously, most of the orange apes from the original movie, they're the ones that believe, like, we can't let them know that humans lived here before. But in these movies, you're almost on the apes' team.
Right.
They villainize the humans, and so it makes the apes not so scary.
Right. And I agree with that.
Factor.
Right. And I agree with that.
I think that's what always pushed the 68 above the rest of the movie. I still have a fun time with those first three, and I would even go to say, like, I like Dawn a lot, like, but I give the edge to that original because at the end of the day, it was a science fiction thriller, because there's that element like, oh my gosh, like, what if we lived on a planet with apes? Like, what if you came home from an expedition in space and then you come home and no humans can talk and it's just monkeys rolling you?
Yeah. And in this movie, there was ape against ape. Mm-hmm. And the actual human aspect of the movie was very, very minor.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the idea of her purpose was major.
It's definitely, that's what I mean by, like, I feel like it's a bridge episode.
Right.
Because they're setting up humans, they're still being intelligent humans for these next 5 movies.
Yeah.
So it plays a minorish role until the end, obviously. But yes, it's definitely very much so ape v ape a lot in this movie because you got Proximus Caesar who's not living by the standards that Caesar set by at all, but he's claiming to be the next Caesar.
Right.
I loved Kevin Durant, but another thing I'd throw in the mat is Proximus' character. We didn't find out a lot about him.
No.
He's just supposed to be our main villain, our big bad, and outside of the final fight and the minor, today's a good day, like, we don't learn much about him.
Right. Well, and then the other thing with me, and we did talk about this too, is the primitiveness, the lack of creating things by a species that's supposed to now become super intelligent.
Yeah.
And a big part of this movie was getting their hands on the human technology. But like we talked about, if you have no technology of your own, getting your hands on someone else's technology is going to be limited.
Yeah, because once it dies or runs out, you don't know how to fix it.
You don't have any more oil for that tank or any more ammo for that tank. What good is that tank if you have no technology?
Yeah.
And they had no technology. And when you had mentioned after the movie that it was 300 years, I think that made it hit even harder that I was kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I expect to see a movie with apes living just like humans. But if you're going to pound home to me that the apes are the intelligent ones and the humans aren't, well, how come I'm not seeing that intelligence?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess maybe in a different way you can argue like the way they were able to master the birds is a wavelength of intellect. But I totally agree. Like, I'm not saying you have to have a full operating system and the internet back up and running.
And what were the purpose of the birds? To feed them?
Yeah.
Because that's what was my take on it.
Yeah.
So they were spending their entire life training birds
to bring them fish.
Yeah. That's primitive.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's very primitive.
I mean, you could argue that it's less primitive because they're not getting the fish themselves, but at the end of the day, yes, it's still nature.
Yeah. And then my pet peeve at the end, which we've talked about, is it's even worse when you find out that it's supposed to be 300 years later.
Do you want to hop to the bad for this? Because I think
I'm going to hop right to the bad.
Let's go to the bad.
Is May when the movie's over and she rides off and you find out that there is human life and they're hidden away in a bunker, and you go into the bunker 300 years later and there's one man and 60 women.
Yeah.
And you go, well, then how are you surviving?
How are you repopulating the earth with one guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, super outnumbered.
And how have you stayed alive for 300 years?
You could make the argument like, yeah, he's impregnating all of them, maybe, but like that's just a.
I don't think Hollywood thinks that much ahead, and we'll just leave it at that. I think it's other things.
Yeah.
But it just was obvious to me.
Yeah.
It was obvious to me. So.
Yeah, that's definitely a detail that is missed on the thinking about it department, but I would say the only thing I have in the bad is just the blandness. It just was pretty bland. It was bland.
Yeah. It was.
It didn't have any flavor.
Unfortunately.
It was French fries with no salt.
or ketchup.
It was just, it like you said, it was serviceable, it's watchable, but
visually stunning.
Yes, but it didn't turn the wheel.
Because when you were talking about that, one thing I did notice when you were talking about the visuals, and I agree with this, is how the scenes changed visually. 1 minute you're in the woods, then you're in the woods, but it's a city.
Yeah.
Then you're back into the woods. Then you're almost where there's flat lands with this river.
Yeah.
And then you're at the ocean with all of the things going on there with the old ships in the water. And then, of course, at the end with May or Ma, whatever her name was, riding on the plains.
Yeah.
They let you, in the waterfalls, and they let you see visually the most beautiful things on the planet.
Yeah.
And different scenes. And rather than keeping the whole movie right here or right there.
Yeah.
That was good.
If you mute the voices and can only keep on the background noise, it would almost feel like a post-apocalyptic National Geographic special. Am I wrong? Like, it just was that stunning almost, though, that it felt... Like you said, I don't know how much was real and how much was CG. I'm sure a lot of the nature shots were real,
I don't know.
You don't know?
I
mean, when the
think-
cities are overgrown, those ones, obviously, I don't think they
Right.
built giant skyscrapers.
Right.
But I'm thinking like when, they had the waterfall shots or the planes, that maybe those were...
Here's why I tend to think the other way. The apes were CGI.
Yeah.
So every time that you see an ape in the movie, you're seeing CGI. They're dealing with CGI.
Yeah.
So now you put the ape on a horse. Well, do you have a real horse and then you're CGIing, or are you just CGIing the horse too?
I think it might be a real horse. The only reason I say that, maybe not all of them, because there's a lot of horses in this movie, but it's mocap, motion capture. So these guys that are voicing them are just, they have all of the, whatever they're called, the things that you put all over your body, and they're probably riding a horse, and the CGI just does whatever, has the dots all over it. So there's a good shot that a lot of this has elements of, like, has real shots in it, but...
I would love to know the percentage.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll... I don't know, like...
I guess there were just times... Look, there are many, many movies that we've watched through the years where people are on a horse in the woods.
Yeah.
And there's a feel that you get when someone is on the horse in the woods. Whether it was Little House on the Prairie or War Horse or whatever it was, there's a feel you get. And I remember in one of the scenes earlier in the movie when they're on the horses and they're traveling through the woods, and I remember thinking to myself, are they really on horses in the woods, or is this all CGI?
Yeah.
I didn't even know.
Yeah.
And I guess for some weird reason, for maybe because again my age, that was unsettling to me. Put a person on a horse in the woods.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to question that.
Yeah.
You know? But that's just me. And other people may think, well, that's ridiculous, and maybe I am, because I'm a little bit older and you know. When cars went up ramps and blew up when I was growing up, it was a car going up a ramp and blowing up.
Yeah. For sure. No, I as somebody who loves movies, both old and new, my perspective is I do tend to appreciate the practical effects more because I know how, time consuming and daunting doing them can be. But it does blow my mind what we're also able to create with a computer. It's crazy.
I agree, but don't use it as a crutch.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I get that.
I think they do these days.
Yeah,
they use it as a crutch.
They definitely do, especially in the genre of science fiction.
Yeah, and the thing is, and we talked about this, there are certain genres of movies where it is a little more acceptable. If you're watching Marvels or DC Comics movies, you're going to expect to see a lot more of it. It's understandable.
Yeah.
But when you think about the fact that when these movies first came out, it was humans in makeup.
Yeah.
You can make this movie without all of the special effects.
Yeah, because before special effects, comic book movies sucked. So that's like the prime point. Yeah, you got movies in the 60s and 70s that were very successful.
Right.
And they didn't have that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they did a TV series.
Yeah.
Where with just makeup art. And
I really like the look of the apes and the original movies.
So did I. And when Mark Wahlberg did his version, they were still wasn't CGI doing in all the different scenes and stuff, but it was people acting.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a good movie. The only thing about that movie that I thought was odd was I to come out with a brand new Planet of the Apes at that time, I didn't understand what their purpose was when you watched it. I liked the movie, but I didn't understand the whole story.
Yeah.
It where it fit in, I guess.
Yeah.
Was kind of odd to me. Whereas with these new Planet of the Apes, you can understand the idea of the stories and where they fit in.
Yeah.
With the Mark Wahlberg, it was like, where'd that come from? But I did like that movie, and I wish they would have made more of them. And I thought it had a pretty good ending.
Yeah.
An ending that was closer to the ending of the originals and making you think
like, well,
than what you got with the ending of these.
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking at this movie going, well, we think he's alive, and we think he's alive. So we both picked up on that these characters probably weren't killed off.
Yeah.
And no wow factor.
Yeah. Yeah, it's bland. That's the best way to put it. No wow factor, bland. But that's really the only thing I think is bad. Like, there was still a lot to like with this movie. Not a lot, but a good amount. It's a movie that'll probably be very forgettable, though, in this franchise. One of the more forgettable movies in this franchise.
I like to leave a theater going, wow.
Looking at...
What fun!
Looking at tomorrow's showtimes for the same movie,
right? And, and the thing is, and it doesn't have to be the best movie in the world.
Yeah.
But it has to pump you up.
Yeah.
It has to grab you. I hadn't been to the theater in years, and Wanda wanted to go see Top Gun.
Yeah.
So we went and saw Top Gun. Not the best movie I ever saw in my life. But what a fun watch.
I loved it.
What a feel-good, fun watch. And when we left the theater, it had been like 25 years since I had been to a theater, and we left the theater both thinking, here we are together 15 years. It was our first time going to a theater.
Yeah.
We go to the theater, we watch that movie, and we get out in the car, and we go, what a fun experience.
Yeah.
We need
to
keep an eye out for movies that we might want to go see.
Yeah.
And then we went back and we watched Avatar 2.
Yeah.
And so, which also, when I walked out, long, but a good movie.
Yeah.
I really was glad we went. And I wish I would have had that feeling.
Yeah.
We left and we were standing there, and you said, what are your feelings? And I said, scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah.
And I'm like, 6.
To put it in perspective, you like leaving the theater saying, wow. I'm the moment the screen turns black and goes, directed by, you're like, you ready? The moment, like, you didn't skip a beat. I'm like, wait, let me see if there's a post-credit scene. Like, but you didn't miss a beat.
It's the first time in my life that I had to fight to keep my eyes open in a theater.
Yeah.
Not the whole movie.
Yeah.
Because like we mentioned, the movie didn't drag. It moved right along. But there were just times where I had to fight to keep my eyes open. And then there were things that we talked about, and I thought, well, my eyes must have been closed. I must have missed. It only takes a brief moment to miss something.
Yeah.
And I missed this, and I missed this. But to be fair, you and I going into a theater, probably going to a theater looking at things very differently. Mm-hmm. You're going in because you just love movies and you want to have that experience over and over again.
Yeah.
I go in being very hypercritical because I don't think movies are as good these days. I think there's a lot of laziness. Mm-hmm. And a great movie to me is few and far between.
Yeah.
And so I don't have a high expectation of most movies. I agreed to go see this one with you because I've always enjoyed The Planet of the Apes. Yeah. And I would probably and I would go see another movie with you if it was something that had my interest.
For sure. Yeah.
I would like for you to watch some of the westerns that we talked about.
On the way there. Yeah.
And then let's talk about
Report back, yeah.
Because I found out today that my nephew has not seen some fantastic Western movies.
Yeah, I've not seen a lot of Westerns.
And you need to. And I'm not saying, believe me, I am by no means the guy that thinks, oh, it's a Western, it's going to be good.
Yeah.
But I named 4 or 5 that I think are 4 or 5 of the best Westerns ever made. Yeah. And they are definitely worth watching.
We can go to the best Western and watch them. But no, I've definitely been told, like, by friends and that I tend to rate movies a little bit higher than most people. But is it the worst thing in a world where there's a lot of negativity to have somebody that thinks highly of something?
No.
So that's how I look at it.
No.
I'm that critic that if you want the fun side of every movie and what to look out for, like I'm your guy. Very optimistic. I tend to be wooed easier when it comes to cinema for sure. But like I said, it's not a bad thing. So
No.
But we can hop over to our final thoughts and ratings. You kind of already mentioned your rating. So out of 10, you're going to 6. Then is that what you're landing on?
Yeah, I give it a 5, 6.
Okay.
I'll go 6 because the visual effects were good.
Okay.
And because even though it seemed obvious to me that there was a lot of CGI, mostly it was done well, and so it wasn't. You weren't thinking, well, this is just all CGI.
Yeah.
There were a couple times that you did kind of. I kind of, wow, they could have done that better. But for the most part, they controlled that, and
yeah.
and I found it acceptable.
Yeah.
So.
What are your final, is there anything else you want to leave off with this film before we wrap things up?
I don't know how you do this, and this is not as much this as the next one.
Yeah.
Is they've got to find a way to get back to edgy.
Yeah. It's almost maybe they can because they're developing these humans, making them intelligent again. Maybe that's your way. You start making the apes the villains again. Who knows? It's crazy to think that there's 5 more of these coming down the road, but that we're not even halfway through this saga.
No, because this early, these movies should be there should be a bigger wow factor.
Yeah, I liked the first 3 a lot. This 4th one definitely took a step back from me though, and I still enjoyed it, but it definitely took a step back. I'm in the same realm actually. I just went on a little bit of a tangent on how I rate things a little bit higher, but this is getting a lot of great scores, and I'm probably at a 6.5. It's right below a 7 for me. A few things changed. I would have put this at a 7. A good movie, but it was all right. 6.5. It's nothing to write home about.
One thing that I've kind of learned with movies as I've gotten older is some of the best movies I've seen. I read the book.
Yeah.
I'm inspired. I have this something that says you got to read the book. You got to read the book, and there's nothing about this that would make me read the book.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm not a big reader, so there's nothing about it that make me read the book either.
Yeah, but a lot of times the book,
I wish I was a bigger reader though.
A lot of times the book will give you, well, for example, Jurassic Park.
Yes.
The book was really the first 3 movies.
Yeah.
There were parts of all 3 movies, if I'm remembering right. It might have been 2, but I think it was 3. There were parts in the book that they used for all 3 movies.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because I went and watched the first movie with your dad in the theater when it came out, which was a great movie, and then I read the book. And then the second movie came out, and you go, oh, well, they took that from the book. They took that from the book.
Yeah.
And that's fun.
Yeah.
Jaws. What a fantastic movie. As a matter of fact, Jaws to me is the one movie where the movie was better than the book. Okay. As much as I liked the book.
That's the summer blockbuster. That started summer blockbusters.
The movie was better
to
me. But still, reading the book was great because there were a lot of things in the book that weren't in the movie.
Yeah.
That gave you some insight to things.
Yeah.
And that's why I like reading the books.
I've heard the Jurassic Park book is almost scarier than the movies.
It was a good book.
Yeah.
It was a really good book.
But yeah, I need to start reading more. I do. It's a good thing to do too. It's so good for your brain and your mind but no, I get that though. This wouldn't be one that would be the first book off the shelf for sure. I don't know if I'd leave the shelf.
If you want to read a couple books that are movies, I will start you out with Jaws and First Blood.
Okay.
I have both. I've read both.
Okay. And
both are good books.
Yeah.
Vastly different than the movie. They make you think. They and in the case of Rambo, much more violent.
Yeah.
Than the movie. Obviously, the cops are bad and Rambo's good. The book they're both equal.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
the story starts from there.
Yeah.
You don't dislike either one of them. I know that's not what we're here to talk about.
Yeah, you're good.
But no, I'd say that you might be surprised if you took a movie you really liked, get the book and read it.
Yeah, for sure. But anything on Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes before we send her off?
No.
No? Yeah. You want to go see it again?
No, but I would go see a movie with you again.
Okay. I'll hold you to that.
That I would do.
That'll do it for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Thank you, Uncle Rob, for coming on. It was awesome. A lot of fun.
Yes.
Even, lackluster movie, I had a lot of fun.
Just being
We don't get enough
No,
one-on-one, so it was nice. It was a nice day. The car rides, we had fun. We talked movies, and so thank you again for coming on.
Oh.
Thank you all for watching. If you like what you're watching, check out some of these other videos. Hit the subscribe button or follow the social links down below. Again, thank you all for watching, and we will talk to you all soon. Peace.